horsepower. This, a Corvette, and a Ford hardtop were smuggled into Germany, where they lived for several years. From Germany, they went to Texas, and from Texas, the person that owned this car died, and it was put up for auction, where I bought it at the Barrett-Jackson auction several years ago. This is the engine of the 57 Mark II. It's a massive V8, 460 cubic inches, that was later the engine that became so popular with many of the Ford trucks and big Fords. 460 cubic inch V8. It was an awesome, heavy, low RPM, high torque engine. This particular one is extremely unusual in that if you'll notice, the side exhausts come off the exhaust manifolds into the fender, run along the side of the car underneath and out the back, which was the only car they ever made like this because it was so expensive. This is a totally 100% unrestored original vehicle. Everything you see in here, with the exception of the battery and with the exception of some pulleys, is absolutely original as it came from the factory in 1956. The interior of this car, as I said, is totally unrestored. This is the original leather, original floor mats. Everything is absolutely original as it came and totally unrestored. It was a state-of-the-art car, had all the bells and whistles, but oddly enough, that 54 Hudson that I showed you a little earlier had more accessories than this $10,000 car. That's equivalent to about $200,000 in today's dollars. The outside of this beauty truly has some beautiful lines. Notice the air conditioning, built-in air conditioning scoops in the left and right quarter panel, feeding it to the air conditioning unit, which was behind the back seat, and it encompassed about half the trunk. But this was one of the early cars for air conditioning and the forerunner of today's modern air conditioning. Notice the back seat of this Mark II. The air conditioning vents go from all the way left, all the way right, and the huge unit is underneath that whole unit. The rest of the trunk ends in the beautiful Continental tire design. This is truly what made Continental the name it is today. That tire inside there, and this one, by the way, really did have a tire on the inside, is where all the designs came from after that for the Continental and the trunk known as a Continental tire. This is the original beauty where it all came from. I said earlier that the Chrysler Corporation wasn't all that popular. You know, I really erred. There is one car, a significant car, that came out of the early 50s before we got into what we call the muscle car years, is the Chrysler 300G. It started with Chrysler 300. They came out with the A, B, C, D, E, F, G for every year. It has a huge Hemi V8 in it. They were very fast, and they were very popular. They were also very expensive, so not everybody could afford one of these. And occasionally, if you were lucky enough to have a parents that had one, you'd get out to the drive-in, and everybody wanted to race you. They were extremely fast. They were state-of-the-art with big Hemi engines in them. Well, once again, that old white and red pops into it. This, as I said, was a very popular car. This is a 61 Chevy Impala known as a bubble top. And the top, if you'll notice, was kind of flared up into kind of resembling a rough bubble. This is what they were known as. This particular one has a 348 V8 in it with triple carburetors. They were very fast. We were just getting into the muscle car era, what we call the muscle car era. Big blocks, high horsepower, and beautiful cars. This one is a restored, original, numbers matching car, which is a gorgeous car to drive and still gets looks today. Let's talk a little bit about hot rods. This is a 1949 chopped, channeled, ported, and relieved full race car. This is a backyard dream. This is what every young man dreamed about driving and building someday. It has a huge 500 cubic inch Cadillac engine in it that's almost 600 horsepower, has a hydromatic transmission. It has air suspension, so you can bounce them up and down if that was your thing. The interior is gorgeous, just glove-soft goat leather interior. This is a full-on design job, and this is one of George Barris's first versions that he made. It's just a gorgeous car. You'll notice there's no center. In 1949, there was no one-piece windshields. They were all two-piece. This has a one-piece windshield. It is so low that the average height man has to lower the seats, and this was channeled, and all the seats were lowered so you could just get in it and drive it. Oddly enough, it's a beauty to drive. It's a gorgeous machine, and it's one of the crown jewels of my collection in the hot rod division. Now, this 49 Cadillac torpedo back, and they only made a few of them, by the way, has a gorgeous engine compartment, all custom fabricated in beautiful candy apple red. The engine is a Cadillac full race engine drawing 600 horsepower and over 500 cubic inches. This was the ticket where you were in the 50s and even the 60s. It's a torpedo back, and by torpedo back, I mean the back end kind of comes back like a torpedo, with the first use of fins were in 1948 and 49. Notice on the interior of this, it has a completely electronic computed dash with LEDs, all custom made, custom formed for the car, along with that beautiful white buttery interior. Well, let's face it, I'm a car guy, and no car collection is complete with that little German Volkswagen. This particular Volkswagen has a great story. After World War II, they started to import VWs. Now, right after World War II, there was a prohibition against importing anything German. But when the United States government opened it up in 1951, they allowed 50 VWs to come into the country. And this little baby was one of the 50. This is a typical original Bug. It has the Bug rear windows. It has a 37 horsepower air-cooled engine. No dash instruments at all. The fuel tank gauge was a lever. When you ran out of gas, you threw the lever and you had another gallon of gas. The trunk, in this case, the hood, has the gas tank, which was a 12-gallon gas tank, spare tire. It's complete with a little toolbox that had all the tools you needed to fix the entire car, with wrenches and the whole works, which came in this little kit. The significant part of this car is it had a gasoline heater in it. This is the heater. It has a line directly down to the gas tank. There was a little spark arrestor that you turned, and it would light off the gasoline heater, which would in turn heat the inside of the car. Unfortunately, it was extremely dangerous, and they outlawed them very soon after they brought them in. And no doubt this probably accounted for a lot of German deaths in Germany before they were imported over here. The interior of the car was very simple. It had a thermometer right in front of the steering wheel. It had a speedometer, and it had a clock, and that was it. The add-on was a Budvass, a China Budvass on the dash that has been brought back in years since, and a lot of cars have put them on. This was the original one. The unique thing about this little Bug is the turn indicators that everybody gets a good kick out of. It's typical German engineering. When you wanted to turn left, you pressed the little lever to the left, and the turn indicator would come up. When you wanted to turn right, you press that little lever the other way on the dash of the car, and the right turn indicator would come up. But the one thing that I get a kick out of it is a little 37 horsepower engine. Did it all. This was a car that was going to win World War II for Hitler. The luggage carrier on the back was made to hold a grip. They called them grips in those days. We, of course, call them carry-on suitcases, but they were known